Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Ford.
And I'm Lawson Page, and welcome to the place where anything happens mind theory.
Lawson, this is going to be so much fun. We've been friends since the beginning, really, since first grade.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be a blast. We've been friends since we were around 6 years old, and I'm excited to get started with the podcast.
Yeah, and we really wanted to just share kind of our interests and our passions, movies, all kinds of movies, horror movies, dramas, comedy, music, um, deep conversations, anything that we could get into on here, we will get into, and that's why it's called mind theory. And anything can happen, and probably will happen on this podcast.
No,
So,
absolutely. Um, I'm really excited to get started with it. Um, so Michael, what are we talking about today?
well, funny, we were talking about the Conjuring Universe today, and
Spooky.
spooky, and the first Conjuring movie, funny enough, actually came out in 2013, so it's been 10 years
Man,
since
it's a
the
long
first
time.
since we saw the first Conjuring. That is crazy how time flies.
Yeah, and I just got out of the theater, The Nun, a couple of nights ago. The Nun 2 that just
Yeah,
came out, so I think it's a great topic to talk about, and we go over.
yeah. Well, Austin, you want to kind of give us a little background on the universe and kind of
Yeah,
what drew you to it in the first place, or
yeah, no, for sure. Um, so I guess the first thing to go over is The Conjuring. Like you said, was directed about 10 years ago, came out. Um, and what I really like about it, it's made by one of my favorite directors, James Wan, who is really a legend in the horror movie universe, which I
Yes.
really enjoy a lot of his movies. Anywhere from Dead Silence to Insidious and even Saw, that universe he created. So I really like his horror genius, and it's really had a legacy with all of his previous movies. Um, with that being said, the Conjurings, they're based off of real case files with Ed and Lorraine Warren. And one neat thing about The Conjuring is, um, in one of his past films, Insidious, the person that played the father in Insidious, the main one of the main characters, is actually playing one of the lead characters in the Conjuring movies, Ed Warren, who the case files are based off of,
Yeah.
which I think is really really cool. They have a crazy real history.
Yeah.
Um, Seriously,
Oh
it's
yeah.
pretty wild. The deeper you dive into it, the more it makes the films kind of scarier
It
to
does. It
read some
does.
of the files. Um, so I guess to dive into the Conjuring movies, do you have anything to kind of give a little background to those movies?
Well, I think for me, especially because we were so young when the first one came out, it was such a shock.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
it was, it was so scary as a 12, 13, 14 year old. Even now, going back and watching that movie, because James Wan's direction, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it's so, a lot of the camera movements are so, they feel so first person, and it feels like you are in the moment with the actors, and you feel like you're there. And just
Absolutely.
knowing the stories behind Ed and Lorraine Warren's, all their cases and stuff, it just makes it even more kind of real. And we'll get into if that's real or not
Oh,
later in a
yeah,
little bit.
for sure.
But yeah, it was truly one of the first movies that, the first Conjuring and the second one too, but the first Conjuring was one of the first movies I saw that genuinely scared me.
I can really agree with that. Usually James Wan has a way of bringing tension that lasts, you know. after the movie itself. Um, Especially with the I think what makes The Conjuring so I guess you could say intense or frightening is
Yeah.
definitely due to the religious aspects that go behind it,
Right.
and kind of how like real the characters are made to feel and how you relate to them, and
Yes.
and the character development.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the families feel real because it's based in reality. You know.
And I think that's one neat thing that he, definitely when he got on board to, create these movies, he definitely did a great job with coming up with, keeping with the case files, but also, a theatrical audience. I think he
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
great job coming up with a great balance to, bring these case files to life so that
Yep.
other people can learn about these stories.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna kind of get, I guess, dive into
Yeah.
the characters in the background, if
Yeah.
that's okay with you.
Dive in. Dive on in.
So I did take a few notes on
Yeah.
the Conjuring movies. They take place, I guess, not in chronological order, but or not in date release, but in chronological orders. The movie goes from 1952 to 1981 so far. And
Hmm.
I'm gonna list off some of those movies so we can, go over them. So
Yeah.
I guess from a chronological standpoint, we have The Nun that came out in 1952. We
Yeah.
have, I think, the next one in the series would be Annabelle Creation, if I'm thinking about it right, which came out in 1955 is when that timeline's set.
Hmm.
Following with The Nun 2, which just came out in theaters, which was really good.
Yeah.
Um, which I think took place in 1956.
Hmm.
I think Annabelle 1 takes place in 1967.
Yeah.
Um, and then the first Conjuring takes place in 1971. Following with Annabelle Comes Home, which is 1972. Following with The Curse of La Llorona, which comes to 1973. And we will be talking about that film as well. That being said, The Conjuring 2 comes out, around 1977, with The Conjuring 3 being 1981, which kind of completes the series.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, that the movies follow the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, which was a
Mhm.
couple, obviously. Um, wow, that was very descriptive. Um, that was smooth.
Well, they could be brother and sister, not me. You know, you never know.
Yeah,
You
you
know.
never know. I mean, crazier things have happened if you watch these movies.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess to dive in on the main characters, so Ed Warren is, I guess, best known as what is called a demonologist, where he studies demons within the I guess you could say the Christian faith. And Lorraine is actually considered a clairvoyant, which I thought was really interesting, and they do display that in the movies. But in real life, she was also deemed as clairvoyant, which is
Yeah.
peculiar to say the least.
Yeah.
And I guess what clairvoyant means is to like psychic abilities within that, which I know a lot of skeptics will jump on very quickly, and we
Yeah.
will cover that. But
Yeah.
one cool thing that the Warrens did in real life is in I have in my notes. Then 1952, the Warrens founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, which I think is pretty interesting, and I guess would be heavily related to the wife Lorraine Warren,
Yeah.
which is it's pretty interesting with I guess that information because you think of psychics and you think, oh, well, this is cheesy or this is I guess not real.
Yeah. It's just
Um,
hokey. It seems kind of. Yeah.
but it's cool because the Warrens they went over. hundreds of cases. And I can go over some of those cases. Or do you have anything else to add about?
Well, you keep going. You're on a good train. There's a few things I want to add later after we talk about the movies, but
Like La
I'll I'll
Llorona?
I'll, I'll save it for later.
All right. So the Warrens, they went over, like I said, hundreds of cases. One of those could be the Amityville Horror, which is actually a pretty popular thing that has made mainstream media, whether it be movies or TV shows or even the actual house. That's a big haunting that everyone knows about, or to a degree, everyone knows about. Um, One famous thing from their, I guess, case files that most people will recognize today is the Annabelle doll itself,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
which deepens my fear for dolls, but that is a topic for another podcast. Um, that will not be discussed today. But I have here that in the year 1968, two roommates claimed that their Raggedy Ann doll was possessed by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins. The Warrens took the doll, telling the roommates it was being manipulated by an inhuman spirit presence. I was going to say spirit, but I think presence is the best way to describe it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that is a big thing. I know in the Warrens' actual home, you can eat. There's like a tour that you can take of all the demonic stuff they've gotten in the Annabelle doll is one of the things that is still there.
Yeah.
Um, in that, but I think
Could you imagine going to their house and seeing all those real artifacts? Could you imagine the 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 heaviness of that?
I
It's like seeing the real Annabelle doll in person. It's like
I would
I
say
don't
that I
know.
would love to, and I'd easily be able to, but, like, truthfully, I mean, I think that that's a little freaky even for
It
me,
is.
you
It
know,
is.
because it's real, it's, like, concrete, it's there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, definitely the movies add a little Hollywood into the experience, but, going there, I mean, I would feel uneasy. I think that their house is located that tour is in, Connecticut,
Yeah.
if I'm remembering right, I think it's
I think
Connecticut.
so. Yeah.
But to dive in a little bit about the first movie, so in 1971, the Warrens claimed that the Harrisville, Rhode Island home of the Perrin family was haunted by a witch who had lived there in the early 19th century. Um, According to the Warrens, Bathsheba Sherman cursed the land so that whoever lived there somehow died a terrible death, and that actually has to do with the first Conjuring film. That is the premise basically of the first Conjuring film, which is still scary today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen that
Yeah.
film maybe 10 to 15 times, and it still creeps me out.
It does. It does. Yeah, I've kind of got a synopsis here on this, some little facts and figures. So, first Conjuring came out July 19th of 2013, and it was directed by James Wan. And here is a little plot summary for you guys. In 1970, paranormal investigators and demonologist Lorraine, played by Vera Farmiga, and Ed, played by Patrick Wilson Warren, are summoned to the home of Carolyn, Lily Taylor, and Roger, played by Ron Livingston Perrone.
Hmm.
The Perrones and their five daughters have recently moved into a secluded farmhouse where a supernatural presence has made itself known. Though the manifestations are relatively benign at first, events soon escalate in horrifying fashion, especially after the Warrens discover the house's macabre history. Um, Lawson, this is interesting. I found this out. Joseph Bishara, forgive me for that, who plays Bathsheba. He also plays the lipstick faced demon um, in the Insidious franchise.
Really?
Yeah, it's the same actor.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah,
So we see here that James Wan likes to use a lot of his, cast that he uses in other films. That's actually really cool. And I
yeah.
did not realize that Bathsheba was played by a man. So,
By a man, yep. A bald man at
oh
that.
man,
Yep, he is bald. No
that's
shame to bald men, but he is
no, of
bald.
course, but that's scary enough. Cheers.
Yeah. Um, there's a couple of scenes in that movie that kind of stick out to me in particular. The first would be the scene in the bedroom with
Oh, the
the big chest.
wardrobe.
Yes, the wardrobe.
Oh man, that was.
That scene is burned into my memory from a kid as a kid, because
Oh,
it
absolutely.
takes so long, and again, the first person can't the shaky cam kind of, it's almost found footage in a way, and
Yeah,
that's a sketchy term to use, but a controversial term, but in some ways it feels almost found footage or like a live documentary, of what's happening.
yeah.
And that's what makes it scarier to me. That's one of the reasons.
No,
Um,
I agree with that, and I think that some of the imagery, especially with it being kids and like, I guess one thing that I find interesting with that is as a kid, like oh, what's in the closet?
yeah.
That was always pretty scary.
Mhm.
Think about oh, what's under the bed, and definitely James Wan taps on that. Like your
Yeah,
childhood fears, he definitely implements that because there is something under the bed. There
right.
is something in the closet, which I do think makes um I do think it makes the cinematography a little bit more scary. It leaves a bigger impact because it definitely relates to the audience more. Like you're like, oh geez, as a kid, I always thought there was something in the closet.
Yeah.
Well, my dear, there is.
Well, this time around, there is.
Yeah. So, and definitely, I think that when they use Lorraine Warren's clairvoyance,
Mhm.
it definitely shows that within the films.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and it taps on like little things, and it's not like oh she sees a whole other universe, but like it adds a little things to like that like normal characters can't see.
Right.
And with that being said, there are a few things about the Warrens that I thought they did a great job within the movies and telling their story. Because not only was like Lorraine Warren declared like clairvoyant by herself, but even the church declared her a clairvoyant. And one other interesting thing is that Ed Warren is one of the few people who isn't like a priest who was like
Yeah.
approved to give exorcisms like in real life, like not
Right.
just in the movie, but like he was, deemed to perform exorcism, which makes it kind of scarier to me that like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
you
know.
know, the movies like yeah, they're based off real people, but like they also show like I guess the real side and like how I guess how they were seen and viewed, within the church, within like um the media back in their real life, like it
Yeah.
really shows that and like how they struggled to be taken seriously in some
Exactly,
instances.
yeah. They were in some ways, they were like pariahs, it was like, Ed and Lorraine Warren, oh, how dare they, how dare they
No,
say
and
they can do these things, and, it was way before that people were speaking out about this, it was before their time, they were pioneers and the number of cases, the movies, like, and them being so open about it, and
yeah,
working with the church in that way too, it was a big deal.
and I think that's what makes the movie, especially the Conjuring one, so unique and kind of and scary is because it it very much relates to the character. It shows character development
Yeah,
and it really touches on the personal aspect of what they went through.
yeah.
One thing that I found really interesting was like the real Lorraine Warren because I think Ed Warren died in the It's either the seven. No, it was like the 90s, I think.
Let me quick Google here and see. Ed
Yeah.
Warren. uh, I'm reading what? Hmm. He had what? No, 2006.
Oh man.
That's what
So
this says.
okay.
Yep, 1926 to 2006, and
Man.
Lorraine 1927 to 2019.
Yeah. Speaking of Lorraine, like I know that she went on, I think, press conference tours
Yeah,
with the first Conjuring movie when that came out.
and she
Real
met James
Lorraine
on
went.
set too. Yeah.
Really, she made it to the set during that. That's
Hmm.
cool. I didn't realize that. That's really
Yeah.
neat. So I wonder if James Wan, got a lot of his information and guidance through the real Lorraine.
Probably. Probably. Well, and she had to kind of, at least in my mind, if I was her, I would want to kind of bless that project. You know what I mean? It needs to be
Oh, absolutely.
accurate to what happened or what she was saying. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into this later, but like, I guess she didn't want her if her reputation wasn't tarnished, what already, whatever. Then she didn't want it to start now. you know,
No, absolutely.
she wants to keep things as per the cases, and there's things that happen in Hollywood, jump scares, stuff that happens that it's heightened from the reality in some ways, but the basis of the family, the home, the location, everything was
For
based
sure.
on the cases, and
For
what she
sure.
was saying.
And truly, like within the rankings of the Conjuring movies, I would put the very first one as my number one within
Yeah,
the Conjuring universe.
yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add to like the first movie or
I don't know. I think, and this is, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I like the snap scene, in the basement where she's on the
oh
the clap, or I think it was it
oh
clap.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was
That
the
oh yeah, and that is it is scary, but it's almost like the equivalent of like Sweet Home Alabama or Freebird or something. I mean, it's so like it's just so it's
oh
been
iconic,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? It
Oh
is
for
iconic,
sure.
but it's been like driven down our throats, and it's creepy, you know. But now it's like if I went back and watched the movie, I'd be like, oh, here comes. I'd want to just like fast forward it because I've seen it so much. It's kind of lost its scare within the movie.
I would
Like if you.
agree, but it definitely catches you off guard for the
Oh
first
yeah.
time you see it.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
even I'd even say the second time it's like, oh geez, here it comes. But then after, like you said, it does wear out,
Yeah.
but it
It's a
it's
great
such
moment,
an
but
iconic. It's definitely a fan favorite to watch that scene with people that haven't seen the movie before,
yes.
because
Yep.
everyone's like, "Whoa!" and I'm like,
Tee hee, yeah.
"Tee." But
Yeah,
definitely.
I would probably say, hmm, for me, this truly, if you ask me every day, this would change every day.
Oh, absolutely. But
Between ratings of the first or the second one, and I think it's hard. I mean, I think right now it's the second one. The
mm,
second one just edges out the first one, and there's a few reasons, but we'll kind of get into that. But okay, if you had to give like something out of 10, like how many stars out of 10, what would you give the first Conjuring?
honestly, for how original it was, I think within that universe, it's the 10 out of 10 one. But
Yeah,
out of like horror movies I've seen, I'd still say it's an 8.
yeah.
An
I
8
would,
out of 10.
yeah, I would say within the universe, probably like, I don't, and here comes a nerdy answer, like 9.5 out of
Yeah.
10. But yeah, I agree. In terms of all horror movies, it's probably a 7.5 or an 8.
Yeah.
It's a great movie even outside of the universe, but within the universe, it's the foundation of
Oh,
a lot of
absolutely.
things. Um, well, I think that's enough said about the first one. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Move on to, oh boy, here we go. The first Annabelle,
Oh,
October 3rd, 2014. This is not James Wan. This is John R. Leonetti, and here comes the synopsis.
I don't think I know any other movie by that director.
I don't either, and I don't really care to know. John Ford, played by Ward Horton. Horton hears a who? Thinks he's found a perfect gift for his expectant wife, Mia. Her name is actually Annabelle Wallace. That is weird.
In
A
real
vintage,
life?
yeah, a vintage doll
Oh,
in a beautiful white dress. However, the couple's delight doesn't last long. One terrible night, devil worshippers invade their home and launch a violent attack against the couple. When the cultists try to summon the demon, they smear a bloody something on the nursery wall and drip blood on Mia's doll, thereby turning the former object of beauty into a conduit for ultimate evil.
uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
You don't say.
A bloody argue any rune run. I don't know how to. I don't. That's some sort of term that I don't know. But um, yeah, to me, this movie isn't super memorable. There's not a lot of. I remember I've watched it probably twice when I was
Yeah,
young, and it didn't
yeah.
do it was forgettable. There's not a lot. You don't connect with the characters. There's not a lot of character development. It's all about the next jump scare, and then build up to the next jump scare, and then build up to the next jump scare.
I completely agree with that. I mean, the way they used Annabelle in the Conjuring movie, the first movie, even as just, a side scare, you could say.
Yeah,
Um, they did a better job with it than just the first Conjuring movie, it being on screen for, 10 minutes out of the whole film, maybe even
right.
less, than they did in the whole Annabelle movie.
Yeah,
And with that being said, it probably, if I'm thinking about it, I don't even remember too much of the movie. And I just watched it for like the second time, just a couple months ago, and I still don't really remember too much from it,
right.
except like a scene here and there, like maybe the elevator scene.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I thought,
And
okay, that
and
was,
the right, and the scene in the kit when the kitchen sets on fire.
yeah,
That's the one scene I was like, wow, this could go somewhere. But that was early in the movie, and then things just kind of. But there's a lot of stereotypes. There's the stereotypical. I almost said preacher. There's the Vatican and all. There's all these just tropes in this movie, and you could say that about all of these in a way at this point. But it's just used in such a way. It's so tongue in cheek. It's hard to even. It takes you out of it. It's hard to. And the dialogue is so on the nose. It's hard to really get into the story and even care about what's happening.
yeah, for sure. And if I remember right, I think it was the second Conjuring Universe to come out. I think it was before the Conjuring 2.
Yeah. I. Let's see.
But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was
It is.
it was
Yeah.
definitely a harder, follow-up because they had this huge like, The Conjuring set records, people were saying it's the scariest thing since The Exorcist,
Yeah. Right.
and I liked it, but it
It wasn't that.
it wasn't it did not follow through as much, and I would honestly say it is maybe my 2nd least favorite of the
That's what
movies.
I was just calculating. Yep, that's the same for me too. Yeah.
I definitely give that one maybe a 4 stars. Just because
Yeah.
of those 2 scenes being, like, really, really good, and I
Yeah.
definitely recommend to watch it because it definitely adds on to the universe.
Right. But
Um,
it doesn't add enough to make a stamp like The
no.
Conjuring or Annabelle Creation or The Conjuring 2. These movies have a purpose. It felt like this was just, oh, let's have the doll in the movie. You
Yeah.
know?
Because although the doll in the first one, it didn't do too much, but it was able to deliver, uneasiness and fear in the first movie, but
Yeah.
it wasn't able to really deliver they used it more as a prop in the first movie than they did
an
you know.
actual character or a story
Yeah.
driving. Yeah, yep.
So
Well, that's enough about that little turd.
yeah,
Um, if you're done, I'm done.
I don't really have too much more to say about Annabelle 1.
All right, let's go to The Conjuring 2.
This movie is crazy from beginning to end, and it introduces one of my favorite characters in the series, the Nun,
Yep, yep,
which I think may be the driving force in this whole movie
yep,
is the Nun aspect.
yep. I
You know,
agree.
and the case is based off of a real story in England, which they considered England's Amityville Horror, which
Yeah,
was a real media outlet during the time of that case. And there's, videos online, and I've watched them. It's like the real, like, possession of the girl in there and the real
yes,
voices that she
yes.
makes. And, it's scary.
It's
It's
it
scary
is
listening.
disturbing.
And you can listen to the, news people talking to it, and it just adds uneasiness. But it also, with that movie, it builds deeper characters with Ed and Lorraine. Like, you get
It
to
does.
learn more about them, and it definitely dives more into their relationship and how they, work together and kind of how their bond.
Yeah, their
Yeah,
their strong relationship on and off screen too. They're really close as friends too.
yeah. I mean, Patrick
And
Wilson and Vera Farmiga, you could not ask for a better horror movie couple. Like,
no,
they're really the driving force behind these movies. Their emotions, their acting, and truly, it's unlike any other series that I've
yeah,
seen where, like, two characters make a film, and
right,
it's really shown in The Conjuring 2.
yeah,
And truly, I mean, that's why it's my second favorite,
yeah,
because it delivers the same type of scares that the first Conjuring does. It's even more uneasy to me,
yeah, yeah,
and there's more tense aspects in it.
yeah.
And, James Wan, I think he did direct that movie as well.
He did,
And
he
just,
did.
you can see where he built off of um, the first movie and just keeps true to his direction and doesn't get
Yeah,
pushed off in a different one.
right. He's not being talked to. Nobody's
Yeah.
talking in his ear, and if they are, it's Lee Wanell who's on his team, anyways. So it's
No, truly.
only
And,
beneficial.
yeah, for sure. And, with that being said, I mean, The Conjuring 2 is it it's a masterpiece follow up to
It's a
the
beast.
first
It's a
one.
beast. Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
yeah, The Conjuring 2, June 10th, 2016. James Wan, and uh, here comes the synopsis. In 1977, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren come out of a self-imposed sabbatical to travel to Enfield, a borough in North London. There, they meet Peggy Hodgson, an overwhelmed single mother of four, who tells the couple that something evil is in her home. Ed and Lorraine believe her story when the youngest daughter starts to show signs of demonic possession. As the Warrens try to help the beseeched girl, they become the next targets of the malicious spirit. And for me, with this movie, and I think to me, out of all the movies in this universe, this movie has the biggest emotional impact.
absolutely.
There is from the mother who's struggling with her bratty, obnoxious kids. You know, it's like everybody. The mother's struggling. Ed and Lorraine Warren are coming off sabbatical, and they're dealing with this family, and these kids, and they're being terrorized by the demon of this old man. And then that's what you think, and then things happen. Not going to say too
Yeah.
much, but it there's so much on the line in this movie, especially towards the end. There is so much on the line, and that's a vague way to say it, but I don't want to, say too much if people haven't seen it. But it's 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 a it's a powerful. Um, it's got a really broad scope. It's got a
No,
really broad scope, and it reaches a lot of people. Even if you're not a horror fan, there's so many elements of this that are it's drama, it's human deficiencies and human connection, emotional connection. There's so many things about this movie that draw you in. As if you took out the horror elements, it would be a great drama.
yeah.
It would be a solid film in of itself. Without
Oh, I
you
agree.
know, and it's. I mean, it would. You have to have the horror elements to make the movie what it is. But I mean, there's just so much character there between Ed and Lorraine, and like I say, the mother and the kids, and they're not doing well. Their house is a wreck. They don't, I mean, it's the mother is struggling, and she feels like she's on an island, and she thinks she's insane, and the Warrens are trying to help her through that and help that daughter who is scared out of her mind.
Absolutely.
And it's that's why it's my right now it's my favorite.
No, I agree with a lot that you're saying. Excuse me. Um,
Don't get choked up now.
yeah, no, yeah, you brought a tear to my eye. Um, but one thing that I did want to talk about is definitely the monster. The entities in that movie. Because with that being said, I mean that movie alone, the nun being created for that role, and how
Yes.
and the nun was actually never supposed to be in it. The nun was influenced by the real Lorraine Warren,
Mhm.
who talked
This is
about like her
interesting. We were
love.
talking about this the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought it was really interesting because the nun is actually the original monster demon was like this dark winged demon that James Wan created. But then after, yeah, now fly away. But seriously, like it was this, scary demon. And there are pictures on the internet if you look it up of
Yeah.
like the original monster. But after,
Looks like
talking to the
Doja
real
Cat's
Lorraine,
new music video.
seriously, that's something else.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a
but
different video.
but after talking to the real Lorraine Warren, James Wan created this character, the nun, specifically for Lorraine Warren. Um, that was the evil nun.
Yeah,
And I kind of see it now as like a tribute to Lorraine Warren ever since she passed.
yeah,
But, maybe that's just me diving into something that's not really there. But I don't know. I kind of am like, huh, look at this legacy.
yeah, yeah.
But, and the other thing that I wanted to bring up was the Crooked Man,
Oh
which is
yeah.
also featured in The Conjuring 2. And apparently, and I just saw this, apparently they're going to make a spin off movie of The Crooked Man.
Well, about time.
I don't really know how that's gonna look because I'm not really sure like the lore behind it, other other than it being in The Conjuring 2. I don't know the
Yeah,
behind the scenes lore, but I'm willing to give it a chance.
yep.
Which
Well,
brings us to our next movie, Annabelle Creation.
create. Oh, one more thing about that I
Oh,
forgot to
my
mention
bad.
about the Conjuring. You're good. One thing I forgot to mention. It's the it's the longest movie in the franchise too. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, it's the
I
longest
didn't know
one.
that. No, that makes
And
sense.
and yeah, like you said, we get introduced to the nun who's played by Bonnie Aarons, and
Created
she
for
was,
that
she was
role,
made by God to play the nun in a horror movie. I mean, she is the perfect fit for the film. So,
for sure.
anyways, that was my little two cents there. But yeah, oh yes, rating. What would you give Conjuring 2 out of stars out of 10?
I would give it. I'd say I give that one the 9.
Yeah,
I'd give it a 9. It really depends on the day, like you said earlier, between Conjuring 1 and Conjuring 2. But today I am feeling that that is the
Yeah,
second best one in the franchise. So I would give that the 9. But strangely enough, I would rate that like in horror movies, probably. I don't know how this makes sense, but I would probably rate that one above The Conjuring
yeah. Well,
1.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah,
But I do like The Conjuring 1 a little bit more, and maybe it's just a nostalgic thing.
probably some.
But,
Yeah,
a little bit, that definitely influences, but Conjuring 2 is a great follow-up to the first one, which you
yeah.
don't really see in horror movies today.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, and that, yeah, I would say for me, Conjuring 2 would be pretty much a 10 out of 10, and probably an 8.5, 9 over the scope of all horror movies
Yeah.
for me. It's just every time I've seen it probably 3 times, but they've been spread out. I saw it when it first came out. I saw it like 2 or 3 years ago, and I saw it pretty recently. I watched some. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched some of it, and it still holds its strong, even stronger than it did. It's one of those movies where the more and more you watch it, the more you figure out, and the more
Oh,
it doesn't
absolutely.
diminish. It's not, you know what I mean. You just get deeper into it. So, anyways, on to the next. Annabelle Creation, August 11th, 2017. And this is David F. Sandberg, who also directed Lights Out.
Oh,
Um,
interesting, I
so,
didn't realize that.
yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. Former toy maker Sam Mullins and his wife Esther are happy to welcome a nun and 6 orphan girls into their California farmhouse. Years earlier, the couple's 7-year-old daughter Annabelle died in a tragic car accident. Terror soon strikes when one child sneaks into a forbidden room and finds a seemingly innocent doll that appears to have a life of its own.
This movie was, for me, great. I really like this one. This one was my favorite one for a long time. And
Yeah,
maybe it was the timing when I watched it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is my favorite one." And although I wouldn't say it's my favorite one now, I'd definitely say it makes my third or fourth favorite.
yeah,
I may say fourth favorite right now. Um, and there's so many scenes in this movie where like I still get freaked out rewatching, and I'm like, "Oh, I forgot about this."
yeah.
Or I forgot about that. But it just continues to be a good movie and dive deeper. And I really think that that is the Annabelle movie that I think about when I think of the Annabelle doll.
I agree. Yep. That's kind of what I was. Um, it's kind of what I was thinking myself.
Because I watch it and it it freaks me out, still.
It does.
And it keeps you on your toes. It definitely plays into the doll factor being scary. It dives into the personal lives of these, kids. And even when you know a jump scare is coming, it still seemingly gets me, you
They're
know,
they're
with
they're
this
done
movie
well, and yeah, they're strategic. You can tell they're thought out, and they subvert your expectations.
for sure. And this movie, it's definitely more on they don't really use Annabelle as a prop in this one,
Right.
which is probably why I like this one a little bit more. They use it as a character, not just a character, but I mean, I remember when the teaser trailer for it came out, and I was more scared of the trailer than I was of the whole Annabelle movie before.
I was like, this is what we needed the first time.
I know. So I feel like they definitely learned. I'm not saying from their mistakes, but they definitely grew from that first one. They received the feedback that the fans were giving, like, "Hey, this isn't really what we were thinking for that character." And they took it and they ran with it and they came up with a really good, I would say maybe the best doll or like, something like that being possessed horror movie.
Yeah, well, it's up there for sure. I mean, and it also helps the director. You know, they had a change of director, and it wasn't James Wan, but it was somebody that, um,
Who knew the industry? Who knew
yeah,
the horror industry in general?
he respects what's happening.
You know,
He,
he really took like the Conjuring movies and made it like, okay, this is where we're gonna go with this. It's different scares, but it's still in the same universe.
right.
And I really enjoyed that, and I think that the direction of that, and I would definitely rate that one an 8
Yeah,
as
I would
well.
I would probably say, yeah, I would say, yeah, probably a 7.5,
I
8.
think 7.5 is where I'd be actually. Yeah, I think a 7.5 would be pretty good. 7.5.
The one scene that it it's still, it's just the way it's filmed is the scene, and I'm not going to describe this well, but the one scene where the wheelchair scene, the jump scare scene with the wheelchair, and she's like rolling, and it's like that like decrepit body or whatever, and it's like
Oh
why
man, I
rolling it
remember
down
watching
the
that
hill.
for the first time and being so
I peed a
freaked
little,
out.
like yeah, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say I did that, but I do think it was really freaky. It definitely added on to the movie, and it was just that great direction.
It's so cool too that it's like, but it's about, it has to do with Annabelle, the person Annabelle, too.
Yes,
Tying that into the doll, so it makes the doll feel more human and more real, more like a real character and not a prop. You know, like it being an actual girl is, I think, really vital to the whole scope of that movie. It kind of
I agree
humanizes
with
the
that.
whole situation.
I agree with that, and I think it did add on to the universe more than the Annabelle 1 movie did. Because Annabelle 1, it is good, but, like, I don't even think they tied it in with anything, you
I
know? I'm
don't.
thinking because you have Annabelle 1, which, it takes place after, the Nun movies, but, there's still, like, so much of a gap of information that we just don't have.
Right.
Like, where was the doll? Like,
Yeah.
we don't really know. We don't really know how it came, contact with the Warrens. There's so much unanswered,
Yeah.
but Annabelle creation, it definitely had like a feeling, and it ended where like Annabelle 1 takes place,
Right.
which I thought was, oh well, that's good because now we kind of see like where they're going. But
Yeah, Annabelle seemed just like this drop into the universe and then come back out in like 2 seconds. The first one, you know,
yes, no,
it was like,
absolutely,
what was the point of any of that? But okay, so next is the first Nun, September 7th, 2018. Here we go. When a young nun at a cloistered abbey in Romania takes her own life, a priest with a haunted past and a novice. Wow, what? And then
don't get tripped up. I know words are hard.
no, novitiate. No, I don't know how to say that word. On the threshold of her final vows, are sent to the Vatican to investigate. Together, they uncover the order's unholy secret. That noise was an unholy secret. Right, risking not only their lives but their faith in their very souls. They confront a malevolent force in the form of a demonic nun. Now, this stars Tessa Farmiga, who is Vera's sister, which,
That's pretty cool.
and I didn't, and I told you this the other day, kind of stupidly. I was like, I hate to admit this. Tessa is so much younger than Vera. I thought Vera was her mother.
No, I did
I
too.
didn't realize they were sisters because Vera's like 21 years older.
And I didn't realize that the nun actress, the sister, is actually an actress in the American Horror Story
Yeah,
show, Murder House and Coven. And I think she's in one more, but I'm not entirely sure. haven't really
Yeah.
been too caught up on that series.
Yeah.
But and the ones I've seen, it really showed me she's not a stranger to the horror universe, and she fits in very well and does a great job with.
Yeah.
And although the Nun one, I would say like there are some scary scenes in the Nun one,
Yeah.
but it's definitely it kind of had the same effect as Annabelle one did, but
Yeah.
probably a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, but it was the same kind of well, I don't know. I almost felt like it was background for the Nun too.
I agree. It set up the Nun too.
I really do believe that. Like, yes, we did see the Nun, but I don't know. The story was good. The characters were good, but there wasn't really a driving force for me, at least.
Right.
I thought, oh well, it's just a haunted nun. We didn't really find out anything about that nun until the Nun 2.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like a setup for the Nun 2, but that's
Yeah.
just my personal opinion. I'd probably rate that one a 5.
Yeah. That's generous. um,
Yeah,
yeah, I we watched it with a bunch of people.
yeah.
Remember
We
that
did see that
my
together.
senior
I
year of
forgot
high
about
school? We
that.
went with
Yeah.
like 15 people to the theater, and that was one of those movies. Over time, I've liked it less and less because
No, I agree.
in that moment,
I
none of
agree.
us were paying attention, and it was awesome. But I went back and watched it, and I was like, okay,
Huh.
Valak is cool. The Nun Valak is cool, but none of the rest of this says anything about anything. It's so pointless.
It just felt like a setup.
It did, and it just felt like oh creepy Abby, and that's it. Now the end was the end scene. Not going to say the end moment with the is
Oh,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's I love that scene just because Bonnie as the nun is she's incredible. But
I mean,
for
she
me,
look because
she
she doesn't even have lines,
and yeah, it's just like
and
it's
and
almost like
she's
it's not to put it up there with like Michael Myers or something, but it's the same vibe. You know what I
no,
mean?
I
It's
would
the same
put it up
sort.
there with Michael Myers. I mean, the nun, she doesn't have lines, and
Yeah,
she just appears,
yeah.
and then scares
Appeared.
everyone. So, like,
Um,
weird.
like the ending when she's like,
Yeah, I
but
know. Like, she didn't say a word, but she didn't have to.
no, her eyes said 1,000 words,
I
and her her
how romantic. I
yeah,
mean,
something. Isn't it romantic?
something.
But yeah,
Wouldn't
I
it be
would probably
lovely?
I would probably give that movie maybe 4 out of 10. I'm being nice. I think I would say it's my third word. It's above Annabelle. It's just one above Annabelle. So it's seventh
No,
or
I would agree with
one,
that.
two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. It's seventh on my list.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Um,
Which now brings us to the curse of La Llorona.
oh boy, you take it away.
That being said, it is a movie directed by Michael Chavez,
Hmm.
and the best part of that film was when the credits were rolling and I got to leave.
Yeah,
The movie was
April 19th of 2019. Yep.
a bomb. And when I say a bomb, I mean Oppenheimer, that movie's bomb, was let go on that film. Um, the best part was when I walked out and went to my car and had a good chuckle about the hour and a half
I just
that I
wasted.
sat through. And I was like, wow, my money's gone. I thought that was funny. Um,
Good job,
Michael
Michael. You made a
Chavez.
bad comedy.
It was a bad comedy with offbeat, and the only reason it even that is my roommate Thomas for all those. But it is a bad comedy with bad direction, bad scares, bad acting, and an even worse, which I didn't think I would say, but an even worse director. Um
Yeah,
Truly, Michael Chavez was new to the horror scene, and truly, I believed did not deserve redemption from that movie alone. The only way it even tied into anything is because there was a brief 2 seconds that Annabelle appeared, but it was not even in the movie, it was in a flashback.
yeah.
So the whole movie, Chavez, which I know when he wrote that script, was like, oh, this is going to get him this time.
This is gonna kick him in the teeth. Yeah,
Yeah, but truly, it just made me go, dang, now it's a part of the universe.
yeah.
Like, now it's canon.
It's a stain on the. It's a cancer in the Conjuring universe.
Yeah, I know. Like, truly, like I was okay with it being a bad movie, but then they added Annabelle to it, so I'm like, shoot. So now it's a bad movie within the universe. Well,
Right.
we
You've
haven't had
tied
that
it
yet.
in now. Yeah,
Michael Chavez directing was off the chart, and when I say that, I mean very bad.
yeah.
I mean it was up there with Randy Newman's music.
Oh,
That
kaboom!
I only know 5 chords. I mean, but that's not the point. That's a different topic for a different day. I rate it maybe a -8, being generous.
Well, that yeah, okay.
It may be the single worst horror movie I've ever seen in my life.
Wow, that is bold. That is a
I,
bold
I
statement.
truly, because when I realized we were doing Conjuring Universe as a topic, I did watch a little bit of it, and I made it 15 minutes without wanting to jump off a cliff.
Yeah, yeah.
Michael, do you have anything to add to this movie? This
Well,
train wreck.
let me. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm gonna
Sorry
read.
about the tangent
No,
or
no. Well, that's
the
why I let you go because I knew you. It was like the tea was the kettle was boiling and it was about
and
to.
then tip me over and pour me on Michael Chavez.
Oh my god. So here's the plot. Like it even matters. In the 1970s, Los Angeles, the legendary ghost La Llorona is stalking the night, and this is how the sentence is worded. Okay, let me start over. This is crazy as hell. In 1970s, Los Angeles, the legendary ghost La Llorona is stalking the night and the children. Ignoring the eerie warning of a troubled mother, a social worker, and her own kids are drawn into a frightening supernatural realm. Their only hope of surviving La Llorona's deadly wrath is a disillusioned priest who practices mysticism to keep evil at bay. He's
You
after
got
he's
that?
after the night and the children.
So you got that from that's what the description says?
Hmm.
That's not the same movie I watch. I couldn't even tell you what I watched. It was maybe that, but I didn't get it from Michael Chavez.
Yeah, he swing and a miss on this
That
one.
was the Last Jedi
Yeah,
version of the Conjuring universe. Like, what's going on? Do we even know? Do they have a direction, or did we just get a bunch of money?
cash grab.
Maybe,
Yes, it's a
maybe they were embezzling money and had to make a really bad movie to keep all the money. But I don't know. It was a dumpster fire.
it was. It is.
I really give it a 0 on a rating.
Yeah, it's last on my list. I don't even know what I would rate it. 0 to 1. I don't just bad. Just overall bad.
Bad, really
Um,
bad movie.
so next we have a little redemption story here. We have Annabelle comes home. The Conjuring universe comes home to safe and sound. Okay,
I
here we
know, I know. We got away from Chavez, everybody. You can come out now.
Yeah, you
So,
can come out from hiding. Okay, here we go. June 26th, 2019. Gary Dauberman, um, determined to keep Annabelle from wreaking more havoc, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren locked the possessed doll in the artifacts room in their house. But when the doll awakens the room's evil spirits, it soon becomes an unholy night of terror for the couple's 10-year-old daughter, her friends, and their young babysitter. McKenna Grace plays Judy Warren in this film. I thought this movie was okay. It didn't blow me away. There were some pretty creepy moments to me in this movie. There was a lot of them. There were a lot of scary moments, which
The
that's good, but
atmosphere
it
was
also bad.
returned.
Yeah, it's good, but it's bad because it felt like once again every scene was setting up a jump scare or some big long climax into bam scare with the loud noises and and then they move on.
But one thing that I didn't like about that movie, and it's what you just said, it is the building of tension, and they did a good job with it for the first, part. But then it just got old because half of the jump scare or half of the build up didn't even went, you know, it didn't lead anywhere.
Right.
It just was,
Yeah, yeah.
and although I don't know. I felt like a lot went on in that, like, because it's only like an hour and a half, something like that, hour 45,
Yeah.
and so much went on with that. Oh, well, thank you. This podcast is sponsored by
Thomas Ramsey.
1792. Well, I wish it was, but who cares? Um, with that being said, um, it was a whole lot of it was either 100% oh the demons are coming at night, or there wasn't really anything going on and they were just scared of their shadow,
Yeah.
which I think literally happened in one of the scenes
Yeah.
with the boyfriend of the babysitter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
um and the characters other than Judy, I really think that it added to her story, but none of the other characters really, like, I don't think we're going to see them again. I don't think they're going to do anything again.
No.
It was very anticlimactic character development wise, other than
Yeah.
Judy.
Right.
And one thing that I did think was kind of redeeming was, like, from the first movie, Judy's biggest fear was the Annabelle doll.
Right.
It was the thing that always got her, which I find interesting because Judy kind of faces that fear in the Annabelle, which is kind of like cathartic in a sense, but
Yeah. Well, and for me, the redeeming quality, there were some good scares. There was some moment in the kitchen at night, the one scare in the dark with like the footsteps.
yeah,
I don't remember exactly, but there was a couple of, and the nun, the nun had her little fiesta in the movie. But with the
was
hallway,
the nun in that?
the famous hallway with the painting, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
it was probably one of those all bump in the night, but I don't exactly remember. But I like how it was in their house. I like how we got to see their house and see what goes on, and see, it was in really close quarters, and I
Mhm.
liked that a lot.
I did too, and I thought it was interesting because they keep all the artifacts that they collect from all the houses, like, in their house.
Yeah,
So it was kind of interesting to see, like, oh, this is what happens when it goes wrong.
yeah, right, yeah,
And I don't think that one was based. I think that's one of the only ones that wasn't really based on a true story.
yeah, yeah, right, yeah.
Um, but
Well, and I'm sure people like people say all the time. They'll be like, "Well, God, could you imagine having all that stuff stored up in your house? What kind of activity? Who knows what's going on?" And they were like, "Okay, here we'll make a movie about it."
which is kind of interesting to think, like, is that just a Saturday night for the Warrens, or
Yeah, typical Tuesday for the
you
war.
know, the babysitter is running the house screaming, or was that like a one off?
Back from sabbatical, a wolf is coming down their chimney. Yeah. So yeah, I would probably give this movie 5 out of 10. For me, it's middle of the road. It's one above the Nun. It's six on my list. It's okay.
No, I agree with
Not
that.
game changing, but I wasn't mad at it. But I didn't. It didn't alter how I thought about the universe.
It was okay. It
Yeah,
was okay.
yeah.
Which brings us
The devil made
back
me.
to The Conjuring
Yep,
3.
yep.
The
June.
Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It.
Yep, June 4th, 2021. Michael Chavez again, or Shabs. I'm not exactly sure how you say his name. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one of the most sensational cases of their careers after a cop stumbles upon a dazed and bloodied young man walking down the road. Accused of murder, the suspect claims demonic possession as his defense, forcing the Warrens into a supernatural inquiry unlike anything they've ever seen before.
And really, that title kind of gives the story, you know, like, and that synopsis really goes deep into the story. Um, it is Michael Chavez again, or Chavez, however you say his name. I don't know. I haven't bothered to care. Um, Michael Chavez returns, and honestly, I watched this movie again on Thursday. I
Yeah,
wanted to give it another chance, and honestly, I liked it a little bit more watching it a second time.
yeah,
Um, but really, I think what drives this movie is it's really strong in Ed and Lorraine Warren's relationship, and that's kind of the driving force of this movie because we see an unwell Ed who
hmm,
is, struggling with like heart problems in
yeah,
this time, which I think was an interesting direction
yeah,
for the movie to go to with the characters not really relying on like their physical but more their emotional levels, which I did like actually. I really did like how it was like more of like an emotional bond. You see the emotions of the people a little bit more, and I will say Michael Chavez did okay with that.
yeah. He
Sorry,
did.
that hurt.
He did.
That hurt to say Michael Chavez did something, but and I'm getting ready to eat a lot of words on this next movie following this. But while we're on it, um, The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is based off of a true case file as well. And one interesting thing about this is it was one of the first U.S. cases for a person to claim not guilty in a court of law due to demon possession. That actually happened, which is a crazy thing, and, I'm not really sure if that helped his case or the Warrens really did prove stuff, but he was only sentenced to 5 years, and his
Yeah,
sentence got down to 5 years due to manslaughter, which, is not a good thing, um, obviously, not a good thing, but 5 years, and I guess they proved enough evidence where he wasn't going away for life.
yeah,
So I do think that that's interesting how they used a real life case and court case
yeah,
for this movie, and I really did like. I thought it was very different than the other Conjurings. It wasn't really based off of like a demon haunting, but like a witch, which was
right.
interesting.
Yeah,
It was really interesting how they dove into that and how that really affected um, the movie.
yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I like how the first two Conjurings were set in a house or in a specific location. This one was not.
Yeah,
They were in the woods, they were in court, they were in the city, they were in the country, they were in open like they were underground, they were doing all this stuff. I mean, you got to see them expand their universe literally, and get run around in all these different places and all these with Ed having all these health problems. You know, it was interesting to see. It was a different take. I think if we had had another movie, if the third one would have been like the first or second one, it would have been kind of like, okay, we've seen this before. We kind of know what's coming. But this one,
it was definitely different.
although it's not to me, it's not as good as the first or second one for you know some dialogue reasons, character reasons. It's different in a good way because it
I
gets
agree with that.
outside of their normal, as we know now, normal situation. It kind of subverted some expectations, I think, of people. And
I agree. I think it was very different, and it's hard to follow up a third movie to be just as original as the first two,
yeah,
um, and to be just as successful. So I really do think that it was the best it could have been for a third Conjuring movie.
Yeah,
Um, and I really do hope we see, a continuation of the growth in a fourth Conjuring movie.
yeah,
Um, so we'll see. I definitely would rank. I would rate it probably a 6.5 stars.
yeah. I would give this probably 7, and it's fourth on my list. It's under. I honestly I liked Annabelle Creation more than the Conjuring 3.
Really,
Yeah, I've got it. I've got Annabelle Creation one above the Conjuring 3, and I need to go back and rewatch the Annabelle because it might change. It's been a while, I will admit, but as it stands right now, that's kind of how it is. Shall we move on? Are you?
I think so. Michael, take the reins.
Take the low reins. Okay. Um, The Nun 2, September 8th, 2023. Michael Chavez. In 1956 France, a priest is violently murdered, and Sister Irene begins to investigate. She once again comes face to face with a powerful evil. But there is much more to it than that.
Absolutely and truly, as y'all all heard, my distastefulness towards Michael Chavez or Chaves, however you say it. Again, I don't know. This movie definitely was his best work.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I was, I'm gonna be honest, I was kind of dreading to see a Nun 2. Kind of was like, why are we having a Nun 2? It seems kind of useless. Like, what are we gonna get? But
Right.
really comparing it with the Nun 1, it really does feel like the Nun 1 was background, and this is the Nun movie.
Right.
Um, I truly believe that Michael's his view on this movie, his direction, his character development, I think it improved so much from being because he went from having The Curse of La Llorona, which is one of the most unbearable movies I've ever seen, to having maybe my third favorite in the Conjuring universe,
Yeah.
which really blew me away. I was going in with the expectations of, oh gosh, I'm going to hate this movie. Like, this is going to be a waste of time. I didn't want to even watch it
Yeah.
until I went. And then I thought, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
This was great.
That's the Nun movie we needed. Yeah.
I really do think that. And, it played
Yeah.
off the character development. You got to see like just improvements. You got to see, more character development. It just was a whole different demon than the first one.
Yeah.
And I would say that if Michael Chavez continues in the direction of the Nun 2, then we are in for, if he continues to grow like he has from the very first movie to Conjuring 3 to, the Nun 2,
Yeah.
then, us horror fans are in for maybe a new, really good director
Yeah.
for the Conjuring series.
Yeah. Well, my God. I mean, Frenchie Maurice, played by Jonas, was his character was so good in this movie. He was
Yeah,
so good. Everything he had to do was all of the emotions he had to show. And there was a lot that he had to do in this movie. Without giving anything away, it was a pretty for the Conjuring universe, that was an intense role.
it
You
was,
know?
and he played it so well. He nailed it. You can definitely tell that actor has improved from the very first Nun movie, like completely. It was almost like a completely different actor.
Yeah.
It was a whole different script, and like the character development between them, and like how clairvoyance is not just Lorraine, and I thought that was interesting. I don't want to give too much away,
Yeah.
but wow, it was a very different movie, and honestly, I'd rank it my third favorite of the Conjuring series.
Yeah, man. there's so much. It's still so fresh. There's so much to unpack with it. Really, I mean, to me, there were not so many, but there were a couple of really good standout scares. To me, the magazine
Absolutely.
rack, the animal in the stairwell scene had me verbally being like, "Oh God!" in the theater, which I don't do that anymore with these movies. It kind of goes over me. It just
Yeah.
I brush it off. It doesn't affect me like it used to. We've seen so many of these things. There were some, and maybe that's because my expectations were so low going in that I didn't. It caught me off guard.
It really did, and I went in with 0 expectations and have
Yeah,
left the movie, like, excited with how good it was.
I know. I was happy. I was very happy. I was pulling for Michael. On this film. I
I
was like,
was too,
please.
but I almost felt like it was useless, but he proved me wrong.
Yeah, there were some really good scares, and nobody nobody, no matter how young or how old, is off limits in this film. In
That's
some
absolutely true.
surprising ways, there's some dark kind of raw moments in this movie that I did not see coming.
Oh, absolutely, and I really think that it was a great addition to the franchise.
Yeah, I do too. Taysa was great again. She's a great actress. Her and her sister are both. It's super cool that it's kind of a family thing, you know.
I know,
This
I agree.
series and with them, it's really cool. So it's going to be fun to watch that unfold. Yeah, I would say the Nun two. If I were to rate it today, it would be above the Conjuring three. But I know I'm just still kind of on a high about it, and I know that a year down the road, the third Conjuring is technically a better movie than the Nun two. But I think it's because we went into it with such low expectations that it could only be at least decent.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what I'm saying? So I think
I agree.
one below, maybe tied with the third Conjuring, and I'd probably give it a 7.5.
Yeah, no, I'd give it an 8.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, that was a journey. We made
Well,
it
we
through
we
all of
covered a lot.
it. I know. So yeah, I think we can move into. If you want to talk about the Warrens a little bit, we can go into that because I've got one article that I kind of want to read some of it to you and get
Well, no, please go into it. I mean,
your
I really just have, like, the Warrens, demonologist, Lorraine was considered a clairvoyant. They were seen by, the church as, like, legitimate people and were treated like it, but please go into the article.
Well, let me get into it here. Um, I'm trying to get into this thing, but it's wanting me to join some. Ed and Lorraine Warren Truth Seekers. Let's see. Okay. Are Ed and Lorraine Warren frauds? That is a question that any hardcore fan of The Conjuring has asked themselves. The landmark horror film franchise, which has quickly become the most successful ever, that's a bold statement, presents the married couple as the only true experts of the supernatural. Each movie finds the Warrens exhibiting a remarkable command over the occult, something that feels like it can only exist on the realm of fiction. Let's see. Um, the Annabelle doll is indeed real. There's a lot of this that we've talked about some, but there's a sir. I've got to find the spot in here. Um, yeah, here you go. When talking about the Warrens, the best place to start is to look at is the book that helped popularize the couple, which was the Amityville Horror. Propelled the two into stardom and showed that there was a whole lot of marketability behind their stories, but a close look at the actual contents of the book brings into question many of the events that are presented as facts. Let's check out the Snopes article on the haunting. The fact checking site boldly proclaims The entire thing is as false, but why? The
Hmm.
argument is hinged upon a few of the haunting's key facts being outright untrue. The book reports extensive interior damage inside the home, but none of this was ever found. It's vague. Conflicting opinions on whether the police ever showed up or sight as well, and perhaps most intriguingly, a demonic hoofprint found in the snow could have never existed. There was no snow at the time. Of course, it would be easy to argue against these claims if you were so inclined. Maybe the interior of the house got repaired, maybe some people never noticed that the police came, and maybe, just maybe, some details were embellished to make a true story a bit more exciting. Um, let's see, but the amount of evidence isn't exactly in favor of the Warrens. The owner of the haunted house, documented in the Conjuring movie, made an impressively detailed video essay deriding the entire event as pure fiction. A 1986 haunting investigation by the Warrens has faced a ton of skepticism from investigators like Benjamin Radford and Joe Nickell, excuse me. Oh, and then there's that time they claim to have exorcised a werewolf without ever providing evidence of having done so. In fact,
Hmm.
a lack of evidence is a main theme that arises from skeptics of the Warrens' claims. The New England Skeptical Society, which you mentioned, was allowed direct contact with them in addition to access to their occult museum. According to them, the Warrens only had ghost stories and low grade, ambiguous evidence. And although the paranormal couple was adamant that the stories were true, that doesn't mean a whole lot, at least to skeptics. Stories are not evidence. Um, but the last little paragraph of this article is, but really, who cares if Ed and Lorraine Warren were frauds? At the end of the day, these are just ghost stories, and really excellent ones at that. Sometimes leaving a thin veil of believability just makes life a bit more fun.
Hmm. I think that that's a very interesting article. Um, I don't know. That's really interesting. I feel like, you know, to a certain degree, I don't think we'll ever really know
No, we won't.
because I don't know. There's a lot of things that I believe that I can't, see,
Right.
but like I believe them.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I think it's very interesting that the Catholic Church or just the church in general really recognize them, and especially with their beliefs and the beliefs of the church. I think it's interesting that they lined up together. So
Yeah.
truthfully, I don't think we'll ever really know. Um, and definitely things are embellished,
Right.
story, but you never really know.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
and
do
some
think that it's a really interesting
there's some
article.
beauty in that too, because it's like it, it kind of adds to the lore of the movies. It's like why would you even want to know exactly? You
Mm,
know, it would kind of go against
I
the
agree.
point of the films, because there's so much lore and eeriness and not sure, and it's like I, I think it just adds to the whole universe. It's like
I think so as
and the
well.
fact that we will never know,
I
you
agree
know,
with that.
because they're dead. It's like
Oh
they
my
can't.
god!
But it's like they can't tell us. And maybe what they were saying was false, anyways. We don't know. We have no idea. There's no way we can know, other
Yeah,
than what's been presented to other than what's out there already. So
that's 100% true. So, well, I think we covered a lot of information,
yeah, we covered a lot of
and
bases.
there's a lot to think about when it comes to these films and the real life stories that go with them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any last minute things to add here, but I think I've covered everything. I mean,
I
once
know,
again, James Wan has created something timeless with this
truly, a
whole,
genius through and through.
you know, and thank you, Ed and Lorraine, and everybody that's involved with this stuff because
Oh,
it's crazy.
absolutely,
And
because they keep me entertained.
yeah,
So,
even the nun too. It's so. it still feels like I still get the feeling like I felt when I watched the first Conjuring. It's just got that
Absolutely.
nostalgic vibe to it, you know?
Absolutely.
So, well, I think if you don't have anything else, I think I've spoken all I can speak on this universe
Yeah,
for
no,
now.
absolutely. I the only thing left to say really from me is, thank you to the people that have been listening. We hope to give you weekly updates and weekly, episodes
Yeah,
discussing movies and music. And, thank you for tuning in and watching us. And we can't wait to be back next episode.
I know it's going to be fun. Yeah, we're going to
It's going to
hope
be fun,
it's
darn
going
it.
to be fun. Watch out soon because we're going to have social media stuff starting up and it's like reminders and of when episodes are coming and what the next episode is going to be and what we're going to be talking about. And so whoever's listening out there, thank you guys or watching or wherever you are. It's this has been fun and this is only the beginning, I hope.
Absolutely. Like and subscribe to our channel.
Oh God, following everything, favorite.
Now, set your notifications. We'll be here. We'll be here.
Oh yeah. Well,
you know, Hopefully we'll have some guests on in the future,
yes, we'll have
which will be very exciting to get
some other
that
perspectives
started.
in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
thank
Lawson.
you very
Well,
much.
thank you for hanging out. This has been fun.
No,
And
this has been great, man.
yep, and I guess we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you for visiting Mind Theory, where anything can happen.